Benvenuto! Welcome to Cherry Hill Home Cooking. My name is Mark. Today we're going to make one of my favorite, not only comfort foods, but one of my all-time favorites. We're going to make stuffed cheese shells. I have fond memories of making this with my grandmother on Fridays during Lent, and there was always a big plate of this on Easter as well. All right, so one of the first things we got shells. We need some dried shells. We're going to parboil this, and we'll go on with this more as we do the cooking process. You want about a pound and a half. Anyway, this recipe is a pretty big recipe. This recipe is going to make 50 to 60 shells, all right? We're going to bake some of them for dinner tonight, and we're going to freeze some of them. So you're probably going to want about a pound and a half. These happen to be the jumbo shells. And to me, I think these work best with this recipe because it's the easiest to fill. Of course, our next big ingredient in our recipe today is the cheese. You want a good quality whole milk ricotta cheese. This happens to be my favorite brand. I love this. I mean, because I could eat it with a spoon. It's absolutely delicious. Whatever your favorite brand is. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is the mozzarella. We've talked about this before. You can get the pre-grated mozzarella in the supermarket, and that's good in the packages, whatever brand you want. I find that doesn't melt as nice as a regular hard packaged mozzarella. I think there's some type of coating, cornstarch or something that makes it not melt as well. I'm going to grate my own in the food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can certainly use a box grater. All right, then we're going to need some eggs. We've got 4 large eggs here. We're going to lightly beat those, but again, we'll go through that in a little bit. And you need some fresh Italian parsley or flat leaf. All right, this we don't have to be fancy with. I'm just, that's really the only chopping I've got to do, so I don't want to drag out a cutting board and knife and everything. But just break off your pieces off your a stem and just, pull it apart with your fingers. All right, we don't have to have precise cutting in that. As far as our seasonings, this is one of those dishes that it's got a very few ingredients in it, but it's absolutely delicious. We need salt and pepper. Of course, that's going to be to taste. I've kind of figured out in this recipe, the way that I like it is 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and a half teaspoon of pepper. Now, we're going to have some salt in our water when we boil our pasta. But, of course, there is a lot of salt in one of the ingredients that I forgot. Be right back. One of the major ingredients. We need our Parmigiano. Pecorino, Romano. At least that's the cheese I like in this. You could use Parmesan too. Parmesan is a little bit stronger in flavor than the Romano, but very important. We need about a cup of Romano cheese. All right, and then we talked a little bit about the mozzarella. We got our parsley taken care of, so we need salt and pepper. Now, I couldn't find just a small batch of fresh basil at the supermarket, so I'm going to use some dried. Usually I'd have 4 or 5 nice leaves of basil, and I'd slice it up, but since couldn't find it, I'm going to use about half a teaspoon of dried. And believe it or not, like we've talked about this before, we use nutmeg a lot in Italian cooking, especially when it's a cheese-based dish, so we're going to need a little bit of dried nutmeg. We're probably going to use about, I should say ground nutmeg. We're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon. If you were using fresh, grating it yourself, good 3 or 4 or 5 grates. And tomato sauce. I don't think I talked about tomato sauce. Did I? Wait? No. So what kind of made me make shells today was I didn't have any more tomato sauce in the freezer. So I thought, I'm going to make a big batch of tomato sauce. So I ended up doing that. And I thought, shells. I haven't had those in a while. You can, of course, use your own favorite store-bought tomato sauce. But if you follow our recipe for my vegetarian or meatless tomato sauce, I promise it's going to be really, really good. All right, let's get cooking. Okay, my mozzarella is all grated. Get that in the bowl. We got our ricotta. Get all of that beautiful cheese out of there. All right, we can start to give that a mix. Now, you can save a little bit of the mozzarella to sprinkle over it on your bake. I don't. My grandmother didn't, but I see a lot of people do. I'll save a little bit of my Romano to sprinkle over the cheese before we put it in the oven, but my grandmother never did any of the mozzarella, so we're going to do it her way. So that's about, it's a good heaping cup of the Romano, and we'll save about 1/4 of a cup to sprinkle on. We can throw all of our other ingredients in there. We got all of our salt and pepper, some dried basil, and our nutmeg. Put that in there. Now I've got a big pot of water. And you can smell that nice parsley, just that nice freshness that it brings to it. All right, and then we got our eggs. Now, our eggs are gonna work as a binder, of course. My grandmother always used eggs. Again, I know a lot of recipes, they don't use eggs in it, but to me, I find the consistency of the cheese, the finished product, is better. I have tried making it without eggs. All right, so we want to get that all very nicely combined. And it's going to take a little bit folding it over and now, of course, you wouldn't want to necessarily taste this right now just because of the raw eggs. All right, that's pretty good. So I'll probably mix that a little bit more once we start to clean up our initial mess here. But, I would let that sit for a good 10, 15 minutes at room temperature while you're waiting for all those flavors to get nice and combined. Get yourself a big pot of water, throw it on the stove, and bring it to a boil. See you in a bit. All right, guys, you can see we got a nice big pot of water boiling. We haven't added any salt to it yet, but we're going to add the salt. We're going to add a nice, good, healthy handful of sea salt. All right, now, what do we wait to add it for until our water is boiling? Well, because if you have an aluminum pot in there, it's going to pit the bottom if you put it in when the water's cold. So wait till it's boiling. All right. Now, the other thing is, we're going to throw our shells into the oven once we've got them all stuffed and ready to go in the oven, which is still a little ways away, but my oven takes a long time to heat up, so I've started to preheat my oven right now. All right, so now the thing is, we don't want to completely cook our pasta right now. Couple reasons we want to do that. One is because the pasta is going to continue to cook in the oven and in the sauce, and the other is we want it pliable enough that we can stuff them nicely but not have it tear. Now, as soon as so what you want to do is follow the directions on on the box. The manufacturer knows what they're doing. All right, and then we're going to cook it to just slightly little less than al dente. So as soon as your water starts to come back to a boil, which you can see it has, set your timer. Okay, Google, set a timer for 5 minutes.
All right, 5 minutes. And we're starting now.
And the reason I set it to 5 minutes is because according to the manufacturer's instructions, this pasta takes between 10 and 11 minutes to cook. And if you got a lot of water in there, you don't have to stand and stir it. The reason we want so much water in there is because I've told you many times, a pound of pasta cannot cook properly in 4 cups of water. So this way, it's not going to stick. We're going to get the desired starchiness we want. Now, the one different thing about today's recipe is that we're going to do, which you almost never, ever, ever do with pasta, is we're going to quickly strain it and rinse it because we want, of course, the pasta to stop cooking as fast as possible. Anyway, all right, we'll see you guys in about 4.5 minutes. All right, we're back. Our pasta is just where we want it to be. I'm gonna go over this way, and we're gonna try to gently drain the water out. Don't mind the messy dishes from earlier. That was Wade, he didn't clean them. All right, oh, I forgot something. Be right back. I want to get a hand strainer. Only because, guys, I don't want to break these up too much or take the chance of ripping them. So I'm gonna go like that, just because the sink is really deep and I can't get the pan in there. For all of you that don't have a deep, deep sink like that and you think, oh, I really wish I had it, I always did too. And yes, I do love it, but sometimes it can be a pain in the neck, especially when you're cleaning it. You've bent over that sink there for an hour. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, but I'll show you in a minute. You can see our pasta is soft, but not 100% cooked. I'm gonna put this pan over here for now. And I'm gonna gently run cold water. So again, we're, oops, got one fell out. We're cooling this down so we can handle it, also to stop the cooking process, and that's good. All right. I'm just gonna put this in there for now. All right, guys. We will be back. I'm going to let those drain a little bit, dry out a little tiny bit, and we'll come back and we'll start to stuff our shells and get them in the oven. Okay, we're going to do this 2 ways. We're going to make, we're going to stuff and prepare the ones that we're going to cook tonight. We're also going to stuff some and get them ready to go in the freezer. All right, so for the ones we're going to cook right now, what we want is, this is just the 9x12 Pyrex pan, and we want to we want to coat the bottom well, and maybe have, you know, 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, because we want to keep in mind, guys, we don't want these necessarily swimming in the tomato sauce, because of course, my tomato sauce is always the star of every dish, but we want our cheese to be the star of this dish. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to just put a little tiny bit on the top. All right, now The hardest part of this whole process, as you can see, everything else was really easy. We boiled some pasta, we mixed together a few things, is filling them. And because it's time consuming. Now, of course, so you can see those are the consistency. They're a little bit softer. It's not totally pliable. It's holding its shape. That's exactly what we want. So now, if you know how to use a piping bag, you certainly could do a piping bag and stuff these like that. I'm not really good with a piping bag, so we're going to just use a spoon. And we want to get them stuffed nicely. And put them on us like that, right side up. All right, now you're going to need a lot of paper towels or a face cloth handy because you're going to get messy, or don't let it bother you getting messy in between each one.
Or use gloves.
Or use gloves, but then your gloves are still messy too, right? So, because you're getting your, not that you care if your gloves are messy, but. And you don't have to worry if you get a little bit on the next one, because that's all going to go in the pan anyway. Now, depending upon how filled you like them, is going to depend upon how many you end up getting, right? So, or how many you get from this batch. As soon as we started this segment, the first thing Wade said is, we're going to have a lot of leftover. Well, that's because he hasn't watched me make them before, and we might. But if we do, I will just make some more, cook up some more shells. All right. Of course, I won't watch you make you watch us all do this. Now, these are the ones that we're going to get right into our oven. All right. Let me just clean my hand a little bit. Now, the ones we're going to freeze, you could do this two ways. You could take your whole tray and, say do 2 trays of this, or how many you want. You want to do some smaller trays. I only have 2 9x12 Pyrex pans, and because I cook so much, I don't want to not have the pan there. So this is how I do it. I take a half-baked sheet, and I've got some parchment paper lined on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill them just like I normally would. And I'm going to put it on the parchment paper. So now once I get that whole tray done, or however many I want to freeze, I'll loosely wrap the top of this with plastic wrap or saran wrap, and I'll throw the tray in the freezer, let those get frozen up, probably overnight. Then I'll come in, I'll take them off the sheet, and I'll put them into freezer bags, depending upon how many servings I want for each one. Or if I'm saving it for later to bring out and finish off for a party or something, I'll do that all at once. But then you just have to take them out, put a little bit of sauce on the bottom of your pan, just like we're doing now, throw them in the oven for 45 minutes or so at 350, and they're going to be just as delicious as the day you made them. We'll fill those all up and show you the freezing process at the end of this, but again, don't want to make you watch all of that. See you all in a bit. Now Wade's going to wash his hands and help.
I am?
You are. All right, guys, so as you can see, we've got all of our shells stuffed. So this is the one I'm going to freeze. So like I said, I'm just going to loosely cover that with saran wrap. And they don't fit in this tray doesn't fit in our refrigerator upstairs. So we'll bring this one downstairs. We'll throw that in the refrigerator overnight, and then
Freezer or refrigerator?
Freezer, thank you. And then we'll put those in individual bags into the servings we want. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a small dollop of sauce on top. Again, like I said, guys, we don't want these swimming in the tomato sauce. And the more layering we're getting in here with cheeses and stuff, we might as well have made lasagna, right? So I'm just going to cap each one with a little tiny bit of sauce. A couple there that didn't want to stay right side up. Now I ended up I had quite a bit of filling left over. I'm going to just cook up the rest of that pound of pasta, but these shells are a little bit smaller than I usually use with this recipe, so probably about maybe a little bit less than half. All right, so then we're going to take our remaining Romano. Just do a little sprinkling over the top. All right, and then we're going to cover this with tin foil. We want to cover it pretty tightly. I'm going to keep the steam in there so the pasta will cook the rest of the way. So we've got our oven set at 350, and I'm going to say we're going to let these cook for about 20-25 minutes. Let's say 22 minutes and a half. No, between 20 and 25 minutes. Check them at the 20-minute point. If they seem like they need a little bit more time to cook to get the shell softer, I don't think it's going to, but then again, it's not going to make any difference if you leave them in for another 5 minutes. So we're going to put them in the oven for 25 minutes. Then we're going to take them out. We're going to uncover it, and we're going to put them back in the oven for another 10 or 15 minutes, or until they've reached the desired brownness level. All right, I will see you guys back at the stove when we put these in. Let me finish up this small tray, and we'll see you in a bit. All right, guys, we got everything all ready to go in the oven. So we got about the middle rack. Now, of course, the eggs aren't there. The eggs there aren't cooked, so we are cooking this, and we want this to get nice and warm throughout, and everything to start to get cheesy and melty. So, like I said, that's going to take about 25 minutes. Okay, Google, set a timer for 25 minutes.
All right, 25 minutes, starting now.
And I am going to do some sauce on the side, as well as some Romano cheese on the side. But, you know, again, we don't want to drown that in sauce. We're going to put sauce on the side for anybody that wants it. And we'll come back and check it in 25 minutes. Okay, I have let this initially bake for a little bit over 30 minutes because as I was closing the door or walking away when we put it in the oven, I remembered my sauce was not hot. That might be something you want to keep in mind. I had made my sauce yesterday, so it was from the refrigerator. It was cold, so I gave it a few more minutes. Let's take a look. Those look good. You can see how our cheese is all nice and melted. Our pasta has curled up a bit. It's cooking nicely. All right, so we're going to put this back in for another 25 minutes or so until it's nice and browned, or to the brown consistency you want. I like a little crispy edges on the noodles, and I'd like to see some brownness on the cheese. All right, see the cheese is all melted, but still pale. All right, so, and that's probably, again, depending upon how hot your oven gets, the airflow in your oven, but it's probably going to take a good 25 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for another 30 minutes, just in case when I come back and check it in 20 minutes, I don't have to open the oven and let the heat out. Okay, Google, set a timer for 30 minutes.
All right, 30 minutes.
But it may end up just needing another 20 minutes. See you then. All right, took just about 25 minutes to get it golden and brown and delicious like I like it. And so you can see it's got a little bit of brown. There's a little bit of crust on the side of the shells. Maybe see on this one a little bit better. All right, now that's at about the point that I like it. Of course, if you wanted it a little browner or crispier, you could throw it under the broiler for a minute or two. But stay close, keep an eye on it because it will go quickly or burn quickly. All right, so unfortunately, the hard part is we really should let this cool for about 5-10, at least 10 minutes. All right, or else it's gonna lose that beautiful shape that we've spent all this time getting in the shells. So hopefully in the next 10 minutes, we'll be eating. See you then. All right, so we're back with our frozen stuffed shells. So, of course, you can do this any way you want. I would say that 5 per serving. So if you wanted to break these up into 5 servings or whatever the case it is, or however much your family eats in one sitting, next time I take these out, we're gonna eat them all. So I'm just gonna put them all in a freezer bag. And they're frozen, so if we get them in there quickly, they won't stick together anymore. And that way, next time you're hunkering for some stuffed shells, even if you don't have any tomato sauce in your freezer, open up a jar of store-bought sauce. Of course, my hands are getting all sticky now because I'm trying to get this done neat. There we go. So I'm gonna put that back in the fridge. I mean, that should easily freeze up and keep in the freezer for 3 to 4 or 5 months. Thanks.
How would you thaw it up?
Oh, thaw it out. I would take them out. I'd put them on the pan. I'd put a little bit of gravy sauce on the bottom of the pan that you're going to bake them in. I'd put them in. You don't even have to thaw it out. Throw them in, cover it. 350 oven. It's probably going to take about 45 minutes from the frozen state. Take off the cover and brown them up. Easy.
Cool.
Okay, guys, sorry about that. We're halfway done eating because we forgot to hit record. Well, not we. You know.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't even have known if you're going to say anything.
Because I am all knowing and all seeing.
I'm telling.
All right. Anyway, what did you say, Tiger?
I'll tell him.
Anyway, it is absolutely fabulous. As I said earlier, when we were tasting it and talking, it's every time I have this, it makes me feel like I'm back sitting at my grandmother's table in our kitchen eating supper or having a snack.
This is delicious.
We got to, so tonight we had our stuffed ravioli, stuffed shells. We got a nice Caesar salad, and like I said, we have a little bit of extra sauce and Romano cheese. And with that, I'm going to finish.
Please like and subscribe, and check out cherryhillhomecooking.com. And we'll see you in the next video.
Ciao.
Bye.
Deja vu.